Recall issues have been a hot button topic both at the federal and state level. We are privileged to have with us Jennifer Timian, who is with the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration. She is the chief of the Recall Management Division. Jennifer, and this is for our friend Scott Lilja, Jennifer has an undergraduate degree from the University of Maryland, Fear the Turtle. And she fears the turtle so much that she went to law school there as well. So prior to joining NHTSA, she worked in a private firm that specialized in products liability and insurance defense. In the year 2000, she joined NHTSA's Office of Chief Counsel, and 2006 went to the Recall Management Division and then took over as chief of that division in 2010. Over the course of the last several years, NHTSA has been actively involved in developing a tool that was recently released in August that allows us now to search the recall status of a vehicle by specific VIN, and Jennifer will talk a little bit about that amongst other things. Without further ado, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm very happy to be here today. Just to come out and talk, with you all and share my little presentation. So when I was developing the presentation and thinking about this group, we don't have a whole lot of business with the used car dealers at NHTSA. We don't have a lot of oversight over you all, although I think you know that we're trying to get some, but we don't have a whole lot of oversight. So I was trying to think of kind of a nice topic for this group that would make sense. And it struck me that with all of this recalls chaos that's going on, that really there needs to be some thought given, in my view, to rethinking recalls and thinking about them not so much as a negative thing, but actually as kind of a positive thing, and how perhaps car dealers, new or used, could start to think about how you can leverage safety recalls to demonstrate and convey trust to potential purchasers or to those clients that you currently work with often, and how responsibility in the general area could actually serve you well in that respect. So that's the reason for the title of my presentation, a sales and customer service opportunity. Okay, so taking a step back, I think this group already knows this, but I'll go ahead and go over it. What are safety recalls? Safety recalls are two things. There's chocolate and vanilla only. That would be either safety defects, which are defined as unreasonable risks to motor vehicle safety, so not just any risk, but an unreasonable risk, which of course there's no black and white picture for that, or a failure to meet minimum federal motor vehicle safety standards, all of which are written down and in the Code of Federal Regulations for you lawyers out there. So here's some examples of some safety defects or failures to comply that would constitute or require a safety recall. And these are examples of what are not considered safety recalls. So anything to do with cosmetics, emissions, warranty terms, none of this NHTSA has jurisdiction over. The purpose of a safety recall is basically to reduce deaths or injuries that result from safety defects or failures to comply. That's the mission of the agency at large, and we facilitate that through a number of programs, not just through enforcement and through safety recalls, but from programs like drunk driving, anti-texting, these kinds of things. Okay, so I thought I'd just give you some high-level stats. Over 17,000 safety recalls have been conducted since 1966. Most recalls are voluntary. Voluntary is not really a word that we use in NHTSA too much, although I do have it on my presentation. Voluntary in our world means not influenced, meaning that we had nothing to do with the manufacturer coming in and deciding that they've got a safety defect or a failure to comply that they need to deal with. Nevertheless, our investigations are very, very powerful. They're very, very potent. More than 50% of the vehicles recalled over time have been the result of some kind of NHTSA investigation. For child restraints and tires, the influence is even greater. It's at around 70%. For calendar year 2014, in case you've been asleep or living under a rock, is a banner year for recalls. And this number is even way outdated now. I put the slide together maybe last month. Now we're up to over 53 million vehicles and over 650 safety recalls, and we've got a ton more in queue. So a lot happening this year in safety recalls. Okay, so speaking of influenced recalls, and what kinds of information do we obtain at NHTSA that ends up possibly resulting in a safety recall? Well, we get information from all kinds of sources, but our principal bread and butter is the owner complaint. We rely on owners to come to us and tell us about their problems. And a lot of them do that through our safercar.gov website, where we have a quick and easy online form that they can fill out. We also have a toll-free number that they can call where an operator would take down that kind of information. That's our principal bread and butter, information from the field about what owners are experiencing. In addition to that, we also review, all manufacturers are required under the TREAD Act as a result of Ford Firestone to supply to us copies of all of their communications, whether they be about a safety recall or not. And we have folks at the agency that all day, every day, read all of these TSBs, all of the extended warranty documents, and look through them and see whether or not there's indications there of something that perhaps does rise to the level of a safety recall or something that should be investigated to figure that out. We also obviously get tips from the field. We work with service departments, we work with service managers. Some of my colleagues are former employees of service departments, and so that we have these networks, if you will, out in the community that feed us information as well about weird things they're seeing. And of course, we have a full-on compliance testing program where we test vehicles, test equipment, see if they meet and pass our minimum safety standards. If and when we do conduct a formal investigation, then we do essentially subpoena manufacturers' documents and information. And then we go through all of that and look at warranty claims and rates and IPTV and all the rest of it. Okay, so one question that I'm often asked by those outside of my community are, how exactly does it work if a manufacturer doesn't want to conduct a recall or doesn't want to play ball? Well, step one, taking a step back, is the investigation that I just mentioned, where we would go out and we would take a hard look at the data, take a look at the claims, take a look at the failures, take a look at the severity, of the failures, perhaps do our own testing. That would be step one. After that, if we are convinced that we have a safety recall on our hands, we typically approach the manufacturer to talk about that. And in many cases, that's where it ends. The manufacturer will say, okay, we're going to go ahead and take care of it. We don't want to argue with you about this. We're going to go ahead and take care of it. And in many cases, that's what ends up happening. But there are some rare cases where, nope, they want to fight it out or want to challenge it, which is their right. At that point, we would present our information, our evidence to our administrator, who would then ask the manufacturer for their opinion, for their views, for their engineering expertise, what have you, their technical data. And after that, considering all that, would render an initial decision that something is or is not defective or fails to comply with minimum safety standards. At that point, the manufacturer could continue to challenge, and then ultimately we would end up possibly with a final agency decision that something is or is not, or is defective, or it does fail to comply with minimum safety standards, at which point the manufacturer has the option of either going to court to seek injunctive relief, or we have the option of going to court and enforcing our order. Either way, we all end up in court. And then after that, it is what it is, whatever the decision is. Sorry, I can't see the button under here. Okay, so in my group, we have a number of very important functions. Our first and primary mission is to intake the safety recall information that we get from the manufacturers, all those safety recall decisions, and summarize them cogently and in a way that we can make clear what is happening to the general public, and especially to the affected owners. So that's that's our primary responsibility, if you will, is to get the information, get it articulated in such a way that it makes sense, it's in plain English, and get it out to the owners. And we do that in a number of ways. We have our website, safercar.gov. Many of you know about it, have signed up for the email alerts about recalls. That's one way we do it. We also review all of the draft owner letters that manufacturers submit. They're required to do that. I personally and my group review every single one of those letters to make sure that they meet, that they fairly describe what is going on, that they're not hiding the defect word from anybody, that a fire is called a fire, not a thermal event. And I mean, you laugh, but this goes on all day, all day. We talk about, oh, no, it can't be. It's not always a loss of control, Jennifer. It's only sometimes a loss of control. Well, okay, it's a potential loss of concern. Got to put loss of control in there. All kinds of interesting stuff. But that's one way we do it as well, making sure that the things are clear and direct. We also, the other big piece that we do is monitoring and making sure that those recalls are adequate in terms of their scope. Why aren't the model year 08s included? You know, is the equipment different? What's different about the 08 from the 07? You know, these kinds of questions. Looking at timeliness, and making sure the manufacturers are promptly conducting their recalls and that they're doing a good job of it, a thorough job of it. We also pick up at the back end. So we look at the take rates. And if we're not impressed with the take rate, and again, the take rate is something you do have to consider under a totality of circumstances sort of analysis. You can't just say, well, they're only at 60%, and the average is 75% on recalls, so they've got to go and re-notify and do all this other stuff. No. You got to think about the age of the vehicles. You got to think about what is the risk involved, what kind of demographics are you dealing with. You know, we know that light trucks, heavy trucks tend to have a lower rate of repair than your minivan. We know that. We do think about that when we're looking and evaluating recall completion rates and encouraging manufacturers to take more action. So some of this is repetitive to what I just said, but basically, we review all the documents and notices that come in on safety recalls. We look at all the dealer bulletins, we look at the TSBs, we make sure that they make sense. I have an engineer that reviews those each and every day. We put out this we publish the safety recalls information, like I just explained, on our website and elsewhere. We monitor performance, and we do request re-notifications by manufacturers or other efforts where we think that's necessary. And of course, we can conduct an audit and an investigation if we feel like there's something amiss. Okay, so recalls completion is obviously something that we're very concerned about. It's not going to matter if there's a safety recall if no one's taking advantage of it. In order to reduce those risks, crashes, injuries, deaths, got to get the vehicles fixed, got to get them off the road in that condition. So we've taken some recent actions at NHTSA to try to improve, push that number up. One of the things that we did was, through a rulemaking that we did, we now require that important safety recall go on the top of each and every owner letter that goes out. So there's no mistaking what it is. For vehicle recalls, we also require the VIN. GAO did an audit of my office. It was very pleasant. They did an audit of the office, and as part of that, they did a study with some focus groups, with average citizens across the country. And one of the recommendations that came out of that was folks identify with the VIN on the letters. For whatever reason, they take it more seriously or think that it applies to them directly if you've got that VIN on there. Don't worry about the name and address, the VIN. So we took that advisement, and now every vehicle campaign has to have the owner's specific VIN on the letter. We are also requiring the use of a new label that needs to be affixed. It doesn't have to be a sticker. It can be printed onto the envelope. That a consistent label across all the safety recall notifications that has our logo as well as the U.S. Department of Transportation's logo to make clear that this is, in fact, official correspondence. This is something you need to take seriously. This is not advertising. This is not extended warranty. solicitations coming in under the guise of a safety recall. This is from your manufacturer, and it's serious. And lastly, as Sean had mentioned earlier, we put out our free online vehicle safety recall lookup tool. So this is the label I was just talking about. I'm sure some of you are very familiar with it. And here's our VIN lookup tool. So when you first come on to the safercar.gov, we have a page. We spent a lot of time developing this page so that we can manage expectations of the visitors to our site. So we could tell them very clearly, this is what we're covering with our tool and what we are not covering with our tool. And basically, what it's doing is it's covering for all the major light vehicle manufacturers. It's covering 15 years worth of recall data by VIN. So simply put, you punch your VIN into where it says punch your VIN in, and you run a search, and the result comes back to you, regardless of the make, model year of the vehicle. If a recall occurred in the past 15 years, and it's still open, we don't cover car history, we're not a car history report service, then it will display. Here's some of the manufacturers that are covered. Anybody with 25,000, I'm sorry, I'm shouting into this. Anybody with 25,000 or more vehicles manufactured a year needs to coordinate with our tool, as well as motorcycle manufacturers 5,000 or more a year. Okay, so basically the way that it works behind the scenes is you type in the VIN gets sent over to the manufacturer based on the WMI. The manufacturer's system spits back a result that we then display on our website. So the good thing about our tool is that you can come with any number of makes and models and conduct this kind of search. You're not going to one manufacturer's website searching for one particular brand. You're able to query them all from our tool. And here's just an example result on a Subaru with an open recall campaign. And you'll notice in red that we have recall incomplete. We also have another status for recall incomplete, parts not yet available. Obviously, that's become more and more critical these days for people to understand that a part is not yet available. Someone will be in touch with you when a part is available. And here's just an example of no open recalls. We also took the opportunity, even though folks may not have an open recall that's identifiable by the VIN, to also encourage folks to search for recalls that may apply that are not exclusive to certain VINs. For example, we have a number of safety recalls that we oversee where an equipment manufacturer has designed equipment for a specific application. Those recalls are not conducted by the vehicle manufacturer. So they wouldn't spit out when you do a VIN search, because we're querying the manufacturer's information. So we thought it would be a good idea to also promote use of the tool where you can search by a particular make or model year of a vehicle, so you can pull up all of those recalls that may apply to a certain application, if you will. And since obviously owners, usually when they think about a safety recall, they think about their manufacturer. So they're first going to turn, we realize, there's a good chance they're probably going to turn to the manufacturer first. So we set requirements on all of the major light vehicle and motorcycle manufacturers to offer free online tools on their respective websites where you can also perform a search that in many cases they are offering more than safety recalls information. They're offering extended warranty information, they're offering emissions recalls information, they're offering other types of service campaign information from their websites. And those websites also have to meet certain requirements. They have to have at least the 15-year rolling window. Many manufacturers are going more far back than that. They have to be, they can't require sign-up information, they can't demand an email address, none of that. They all have to be just easy peasy, lemon squeezy. think I skipped a slide. That's okay. I've got a hard copy here, so let me figure out where I was. Oh, yes, and in addition to the VIN lookup tool, we still have our classic tools. Again, one can come to our website and you can search by make, model, year if you don't have a VIN, or if you're looking for information about those other recalls that aren't being conducted by the vehicle's manufacturer. We also have, you can sign up for recall alerts. So if you're interested in a particular vehicle or all vehicle recalls, you can sign up for those. We will send you emails about the new recalls that have just been posted, which is a great, great tool. We have many, many interested media subscribers to that. Okay, so let me get rid of this cursor. How do I get rid of this? Sean, how do I get rid of this? Do I just press? Yeah, just press that black button. Okay, thank you. So now we're getting to the tail end of my presentation. I was again trying to think about how to relate to this particular community, and the theme of how you can use how safety recalls can be a positive thing, or how you can use them and leverage them to build trust with your owners. Because I realize, you've got the stereotype of the used car dealer, right? Oily, sort of, disingenuous. It seems to me that you could use safety recalls to turn that around, or at least convey, very clearly that you care about your customers, and it's not just about the dollar, that it's about much, much more. So step one, from my perspective, would be to, when you're going, wherever you go to purchase your vehicles, whether it be directly from the owner or from an auction house or however you're getting these vehicles, to make sure that you're checking those VINs, make sure that you're running the VINs. Are there open safety recall campaigns on that vehicle? Get yourself educated. From there, and there's really no reason not to do this, right? It's free, it's easy, relatively. Yeah, it takes you some time, but it's better to know than not know, right? For both you and for your prospective purchaser. Step two, get it fixed. Either insist before purchase that it be fixed, or get it done, yourself. One way or another, get it done. And then, keep the paperwork so you can show that it was done. Step three would be to educate your buyers. Maybe, about, yes, this had a safety recall. I took care of it already. Here's the paperwork. We care. Parts aren't available yet, but I want to make you very aware that this safety recall is out there, and that you need to be aware of it before you buy this car and get it taken care of, and at the time when the manufacturer's ready to repair your vehicle. These kinds of things. Educating the buyers about where they can go in the future. Okay, maybe the car doesn't have a current open recall campaign, but I think we all realize that most cars are going to have a safety recall at some point in their lives, if not many, many recalls at this point. So teach them, this is where you can go. You can go to safercar.gov. You can register for email alerts about this particular car. You can run this awesome search. Or you can go to the manufacturer's website and do it from there. These are all educational opportunities, again, to show, I care. I care about your safety. And some other things from my perspective. It's very important to stick with the manufacturer's messaging. We see all kinds of bogus, ambiguous materials that various advertising firms will encourage, a dealership to use to bring customers into the service bay. And some of those border, are pretty, like I said, ambiguous, scary, or just wrong. I know somebody that works at Toyota that got a notice about a Nissan. He doesn't own a Nissan, but got a notice about a Nissan. Come in, you got to get that taken care of. Just sort of all kinds of irresponsible tactics, out there. Again, important to stay with and stick with the manufacturer's messaging. Not only because it's the responsible and right thing to do, but because I talk to the FTC. We compare notes. I'm sending them over, cases where, we've got some questionable advertising and marketing practices going on, and they're interested in this kind of stuff. So, again, stick with the manufacturer messaging. Don't issue recall re-notifications on your own. Talk to the manufacturer. Never use the NHTSA label. That is strictly for manufacturer use. That is by federal law. If you happen to see something, say something. If something seems really crazy with a particular car, you had a particular experience, and you want to, say something about it, then do so. Please contact the manufacturer, file a complaint, call us, file a complaint. Do something. Don't keep that information to yourself.